Hello, hello. I was gonna play a countdown, but I figured I would just jump right in and see how everybody's doing. But it was a pretty cool countdown. Let me show you. It was gonna be something like that. So how are y'all doing tonight? Hopefully you're doing well. I've been away from the public classes for quite some time, so it's good to be back. And not going to get into any kind of long story. Just dealing with some medical issues and things like that. But we're doing good now. And tonight we are going to attempt to design a holiday sign. In this case, I'm going to be making a Thanksgiving sign, but the process can be applied to, well, Halloween's already tomorrow, so that's too late. But, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, any holiday, right? We can try to, hopefully the things that we take from the class, we could apply to other signs. It doesn't have to be holiday signs or anything like that. Just sign making, just sign to, trying to be somewhat, creative in our thought process and all. So we're going to be using a lot of different tools. We're going to be using distortion. We're going to probably do a little bit of node editing. We're going to do some trimming. We're going to look at different fonts and different font styles and have some fun with it. So we're going to see what we can do. But I want to thank you all for joining me. And we're going to, with that being said, we're going to jump right on in. So let me switch over and let's get this party started. All right. Okay. And the project we're going to set up, we can make it out of a simple 3/4 inch board panel. I want this to be a nice visual sign, so it could be cut out to a shape or whatever. Right now it's just a rectangle, and I've got kind of a golden ratio going on here. So we are at about 24 inches by 14 7/8. Hey, Jeff Smith, thanks for popping in. Ronnie, good to see you. Tony Patterson, David Heineke, Keith Kessler, good to see you guys. For all of you that are in the background watching and all, pop into the chat, communicate with everyone, say hi, and don't forget to give those thumbs up if you learn anything tonight, because that helps with the channel and it helps me buy Christmas presents, right? So all that cool stuff. All right, so golden ratio, 24 by 14 7/8. It kind of just gives a pleasing rectangular shape. Basically, if you're not familiar with the golden ratio, 1.618, it goes on, into other numbers, but that's kind of the main one. You can either multiply or divide by that number to get either your length or your width. In my case, 24, the 24 taking taking that and dividing it by 1.618, we get 14, and a long strong number, 14.8, blah 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 blah, but I just rounded it up to 14 7/8, 14.875. And so the what is the number here? 24 divided by 1.618 equals, that's not the equal sign, equals, yeah, 14.833, blah, blah, blah. But so I just 875, 14.875 is what we have. All right. So with that, I don't know if that's going to be the final shape as far as rectangle. I don't know if it's going to be a profile cut out to certain shapes, but it could be anything. We're going to look at a couple of different styles. The main one that I want to do is a simple Happy Thanksgiving sign. I want to use, some pumpkins, a pumpkin vine. I want to kind of lay out some pumpkin leaves. And then we're going to use a little bit of distortion to distort the words and things and see what we can really come up with. The thought process is whatever we do tonight, hopefully we can take some of that stuff away and bring it to our other signs for whatever we do. All right. And so I'm going to do a couple of different signs, a couple of little sayings and all, but the main one that we're going to be dealing with is just Happy Thanksgiving, right? But then also, we're probably going to make a little simple sign that would say something like, with different fonts, gather together, give thanks, eat pie, right? Whatever the case may be. Or, give thanks in everything, right? I mean, there's so many different, thankful and blessed. There's so many different sayings that you see around the Thanksgiving holiday. It really, just depends on what you want, right? Okay, so enough of that blabbering. Let's get into it. Let's start off with the gather together, give thanks, and eat pie sign. It'll be a very simple one. And then we can kind of go from there. So the first one, to give ourselves a little bit of variety, I am using a font called the Milk Store Font Bundle. And let me get to the font page. I am fascinated with a company. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever, but I'm fascinated with a company called Heritage Type Company. They have a variety of a small but amazing set of font collections. And so if we look at all their fonts, all font styles, I started out with them years ago. I started out with them and I bought their vintage font bundle, which had this Black River, Old Alfie, Royal Signage type font brilliant. And it has served me well with all the signs over the years. With that, and then recently I had a project that I was going to do, like an old farmhouse sign that I did, and that led me back to Heritage Font Company, and I ended up purchasing the old Milk Store font, or the Milk Store Font Collection. And with the Milk Store Font Collection, with the font styles and everything, they have 3 different styles of each font, kind of a textured, a rough, and a clean of each version. And there's like 4 different main fonts, and then a bunch of templates, as well as a bunch of graphics and things that are kind of, part of the font bundle that one could use and everything. And I really like this font bundle. Gives quite a variety for doing, different types of signs and things. And it really looks, good. So I went back, and they're having a big sale, $39, versus the regular price of what it normally is. And they generally always have sales going on. So it is a good company. The fonts are great. And that's what I'm using tonight. So we're going to probably, in this sign, the gather together, give thanks, eat pie sign, we're probably going to use the Milk Store font for that. But in the Happy Thanksgiving sign, I think I'm going to lean on my old Black River font. I think I'm going to lean on my old Black River font for that. For that particular sign. And then there's all kinds of ornamental bundles and all things. I really like them. If you ever get a chance, if you're ever looking for a nice font collection, they got skulls, they got all kinds of cool stuff, animals, wild animals, right? So if you're ever looking for something, I have, again, no affiliation with them, but heritagetype.com, heritagetype.com. Really, really good site, and it's an instant download. You know, you get the link to download all your fonts and all that stuff once you pay and everything, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So with that being said, let me see here. I have a question here. I'm too lazy to remember the G-code formula. I just found one online and save it to my design bar. Is GC stand for G-code, JR? Is that G-code formula? Is that what GC stands for? G-code formula? Let me know in the chat. All right, and then we'll progress from there. So now on this give thanks, eat pie, you know, give thanks, gather together, eat thanks, eat pie. Just something kind of cute and whimsical. So I've got two images that I want to bring in. So we're going to import a bitmap image, and I have this one and this one. For some pie, we're gonna utilize one or two of those, or we might use both, but we'll trace them out and use them somewhere in the project. So when we're tracing an image, we're going to use the bitmap trace tool, and in the bitmap trace tool, and I'm sorry, my phone keeps beeping off. Give me just a second, make sure it's nobody in. Okay, cool. All right, so when we're tracing, I typically find myself going to a black and white trace versus the color trace, unless it's a color image with very distinct different colors that I can pick and choose perfectly what I want. So in the case, we'll do the pie first. And let me close this tool and let's get it front and center here and zoom into it. It's not a high resolution image by any means, but it'll give me exactly what I need for this. So I'm going to do a black and white trace. Now, when I'm tracing the image, the first thing we're doing is the very first thing you should do is turn the fading off at the bottom. It defaults to the center, about 53%. Let's bring that to none so you can see the image in its full glory. That way you can see if you're too light or too heavy or, you know, somewhere right in the middle kind of thing, right? And so I am a big fan of between 50 and 75, and normally my go-to is I just go straight to 75. And if it doesn't look good, I'll back it off. But 75 is usually what I go to straight. So that'll be my choice there. I'm going to be a default corner fit. Big advocate of the default corner fit. They've got it right when they set up that default setting. Noise filter, there's not a lot of noise happening in here, so I'll just bump that up to 3. And that's it. I'm going to preview that image. I'm going to apply it and close that tool. So if I were to move the image out of the way, we're left with that tracing there, right? Okay, cool. So now I want to do the same thing with the pie. Now the pie slice is going to trace differently. The pie slice is going to trace differently, and where you see in between the lines here, not the black lines, but you know, it's going to kind of carve in between those lines and stuff. And I don't know how it's going to look. I kind of wanted a whole pie and then a pie slice to put together, you know, side by side or something like that. I really wanted a really nice looking steaming apple pie. Oh yeah, golden triangle, or the golden ratio. Golden ratio. There you go. GC formula. All right. So JR was saying he's too lazy to remember the golden ratio formula, so he's got it saved in his design bar at the top and everything. Very cool. Yeah. It's every once in a while I have to find myself going, but can I show really quickly? Let me detour for 2 seconds to show you a very cool trick. If you don't remember the formula offhand, if you take and draw a square, an actual square. So let's say I draw a square 3 inches by 3 inches, just in this example. Okay. If you take a line, the line tool, and you snap it right to the middle at the bottom and draw a line, click here at the bottom in the middle and draw a line straight up to the corner, just like that. And then you rotate. So open up the rotate tool and take that pivot point, drag it all the way down to that middle point there and everything. And then rotate that line down to where it's 90 degrees straight across. And then take your rectangle and stretch that rectangle out to the end of the line. And that's your golden ratio. Okay. And you could do that either way, whatever way, vertically or horizontally, right? It's easy peasy. If you forget the formula, just draw the line from the center to the corner, rotate it down straight, and then stretch that square out to the end of that line, and that's your golden ratio. There you go. All right. Anyway, let's get moving here. Okay, so on the pie slice, I don't know how it'll look when it carves and everything. We'll play with it and see. I wanted a nice steaming apple pie graphic, I didn't have enough time to really go find a good graphic online and stuff. So this is what I got. This is what we're working with. We'll make it work and we'll make it look good. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the trace tool on this one. Again, turn the fading off. Thanks, Brooks Martin. I appreciate that. We're going to turn it to a black and white. I'm going to slide this in, and you can see how it changes, and how gets better or worse. And then once we get too far, it kind of starts, distorting, right? So here at my 75 that I go to, fairly decent. But if I wanted the lines to be thicker for any reason, I could bump over. Just don't want to pick up that noise, right? So, but I'm still going to stick to my old 75.75. I like it, so I'm going to leave it, and we'll preview that, apply, and close. And then again, if I were to move that image out of the way, I'm left with that graphic there. And now these are scalable graphics. You can scale them up to the size of a building, down to the size of a stamp, and they will work for you. All right, so now I have two graphics that I can work with, and let's lay out the sign. Now on this sign, again, I'm going to be using gather together, give thanks, eat pie, right? And no in particular order and all that stuff. Now, I would probably say that it might be, if I'm going to be using the pie as kind of the, like the little graphics and all, I might have, like in bigger letters, the eat pie, right? And then in a smaller decorative, more letters above, gather together, and below, give thanks. And kind of like, split it up that way and everything. So with that process, or with that thought in mind, and I could go round with this, almost like it was I could make it the sign as if it was like a shape of a pie. I could have scalloped edges on that roundness as if it was, kind of like the pie crust. I could be square, I could be rectangle, I could be whatever, one would want to give a try, right? And so let's start off with the rectangle. Let's play it out, and then we'll see. That's a lie. Let's start out with a circle. We'll do eat pie in the middle with the pies, and then we'll curve the text. So that way we have an element of curved text, and also you can see how to do that and everything. All right, cool. Sounds good. Let's get, did I lose y'all? Hold on a minute. I didn't lose you. There you are. I thought I lost you. I thought I had to go hunting for you, guys and girls. Y'all were just in a million tabs away. There we go. All right. So what we're going to do, let's do round. That way we have to curve some of the text and be playful that way. So with this first setup, I'm just going to draw the circle that could be cut out. We wouldn't waste the wood. We would make our board the most appropriate size and everything. of course, but I'm just going to draw the circle. And in this case, I'm going to go with a 24-inch diameter circle. That's a lie. I'm going to go with a what looks good on a door. Let's go 17. I could buy a 17-inch circle from Lowe's. Yeah, let's go 17 inches. And since my sign is only 14.5 inches, I do want it to look appropriate. So let's go ahead and change this to, we'll just do 18 by 18 square here just for visuals and for also for actual cutting. And let's align that circle to the center of the material. All right, now sometimes I like things raised, sometimes I like things V-carved in, but I always like kind of somewhat of a border. So I'm going to offset this line using the offset tool. I'm going to offset that line inward, and I kind of like a 1 inch, offset inward on that. So we'll go 1 inch, and then from there, everything inside is contained within that, that area here. So now, if I'm going to curve the text, I have two ways that I can do it. One, I can write out the text and then curve it by pulling the text up or down, which you'll see in a minute. Or two, I can have the text follow a curve if I've already got the curve created. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this inner circle and offset it one more time. And I'm going to offset it probably about 1 inch down, maybe 3/4. Let's go 1 inch down. We'll offset in one more time at 1 inch there. And then I'm going to decide right out of the gate where I want this text, if I do want it to curve or anything, where I want it to start and stop. I don't want to go if I leave the circle intact, it's going to try to wrap the text around the entire circle. So I would like, and I'll use a guideline for this, I'll pull a guideline down out of the ruler, and I'll stop the guideline kind of thinking of this arc right here where I would like the text to start and stop, right? And so from there, if I have that as my arc, I'll go ahead and node edit that, and I'll cut it right there. Cut the vector there, and cut the vector there. Now, I'd like to stay consistent, so if I'm going to arc this at the top here like that, I'm going to probably have the same size arc at the bottom. Doesn't have to, that kind of thing. And since that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and just hit delete to get rid of that. And I'll just take that arc that I cut and I will mirror it down using the mirror tool. I will create a mirror copy, flipping it about the job center. I will flip it vertically to bring that arc down there. So now I can put that guideline back up into the ruler, and that's going to be possibly the two arcs that I'm going to curve my text to, right, to flow. Now, the middle here, okay, what I want to do with the middle. And I would personally like to create kind of two bars, for the text to kind of be in the middle of, and I want to draw them out. I use this method in our private class that we did the other Wednesday, using kind of what I call a wrought iron graphic, if you will. So I'm going to import that graphic in. Let me see if I can find it so I know where I'm importing it from. Wrought iron, Laney, wrought iron. Swish. Okay, so I'm going to have to look it up again because for some reason I do not have that file. Let me just check one more area before I commit to downloading it again. Wrought iron. All right, so I'm going to do a Google search. Let me pull up a Google browser here. For, I don't know if I'm just going to say wrought iron. Rod iron. I'll go wrought iron. I don't know if that's right or not. Wrought iron. Yeah, wrought iron swirl vector. Wrought iron swirl vector. And let me pull that over onto the screen. So, you know, when I'm looking at these images and everything under wrought iron swirl vector, and what I'm trying to get at is I kind of like, you know, that wrought iron look. And in here, there is, you know, there's a nice graphic that, you know, has that bar. Imagine this flipped up and with words in the middle, that kind of thing. I'd like to do something like that, but I want to use, you know, just a very simple wrought iron, maybe little arrowheads. I don't want to do anything, you know, this ornate. So here in the graphics, as we, you know, come down under free picks, there are these two wrought iron graphics here. And then, of course, you know, as you go down there, there's all kind of options and on. I really like there's some of them that that, you know, look good and simple. Some of them you can cut off what you don't need, keep what you want, that kind of thing. And what I'm going for is kind of like this coloring box set, you know, this kind of thing where the bar will have this type of graphic underneath, you know, and all. And so with that being said, there is one particular graphic that I had purchased and downloaded, and it's not on my computer right this second, so I got to kind of recreate the illusion. And so let's not waste too much time with this. I will just use one of these as inspiration, and I'll draw it myself because we're creative like that. But just know that, yes, you can absolutely trace the image and things. But we'll save that one. In here, what I'm going to do to create that wrought iron bar and everything is I'll start out with just a rectangle, right? Put a rectangle where I want the text to be. And the size of it, let me get it centered because I don't think I drew it centered. The size of it, I want to kind of stay, it's eat pie, right? If it's going to say eat pie, and it might have the little picture of the pie there inside of it as well too, and everything. It's only 6 words, so I don't want to, you know, have a big stretch and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not using this big rectangle. I'm actually going to be using just the top bar and the small bar, you know, here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset this inward with sharp corners, and I'm just going to go 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. And what this does is it gives me my double line that I need here. And so now I can come in node editing, and I can delete this span on both sides here. And the same thing out here, I can delete the span. And I'm not worried about the 2 spans not lining up here, because I'm actually going to draw a little arrowhead to put on the ends. I'm going to have a little arrowhead and everything on the ends. So in order to draw the arrowhead, I'm going to use the triangle tool. Well, there isn't really a triangle tool. It's the polygon tool. So draw a polygon, and it's going to be a 3-sided polygon. So I'm going to pull out a triangle here. And on this triangle, I'm going to stretch it just a little bit. And then I'm going to go into node editing, and on the straight lines, I'm going to right click. Don't right click right in the middle. There's a center point there. Come on the line, and I'm going to right click and turn it to a Bezier curve. Now, or actually, I'll just do it as an arc, not a Bezier curve. Now this is an arc, and when I pull this, I want to pay attention to the number that shows up on the screen. So as I pull this out, I'm kind of bulging it slightly, and I want to pay attention to that distance number, right? Because I want to pull the same distance on the other side. So here we're going to go kind of 0.03. And so on this one, again, I'll right click and turn it to an arc. You see how it automatically shot that right out? Goofball that is. But on my straight, I can come in here and with that, you know, it shot out here. Now my 0.03 is out here, right? That's not the right number. So I need to take my straight line, and it should be 0.3305 instead of 0.305. So as I pull, we got to subtract the math backwards now. Thanks. 0.305 minus 0.03 is going to be 0.275. So I'm going to pull this out to 275 and everything. You got to do the math when the program throws a curveball at you. You just got to do the math, right? So that way we can get the same. Now I could have really gone extreme, and I could have just cut it in half right here and here and flip that side over, right? But I can do the math. It's not that hard. 0.03. Okay. So now I have a simulated kind of like point arrowhead, right? So let's go ahead and rotate that bad boy by hitting the number 9 key on the keyboard. That's the keyboard shortcut for a 45-degree rotation counterclockwise. So every time I hit the number 9 key, it'll rotate counterclockwise, and I'm going to drag this up, and I'm going to pop it right about here. Now, I'm not going to just pop it there. I want to be in the center of these 2 points, right? So the center of my arrowhead, I want to make sure that I'm centered on here. Well, I don't really have a good snap point to the center and everything. So I'm going to draw a little line to help me. Every time I draw a line, it gives me that line that I create, gives me a center point. If I click on there, there's my center point, right? So now I could come in here and grab the center of the arrowhead and snap it right to the center of that line. And now I'm centered, right? That's one way, right? So I could do that. Or I could have on here, I could have taken the 2 lines here and kind of grouped them together so that they're treated as one item. And I could have selected this item, the item I want to align, and this item, the item I want to align to, and use the alignment tool and align to that last item up and down, right? Either one. Both of them got me from point A to point B, right? So whichever one, works for you. I like, quickly I can draw a line out and I have something to snap to, just as easy, right? Whatever floats your boat. Okay, so now with that, the reason why I was not worried about the ends meeting up is because I'm going to weld this whole thing together, and at that point it's all going to be connected anyway. But before I weld it together, I want to mirror it to the other side. So I want to take the mirror tool, create a mirrored copy, flip about job center, flip horizontally. And at that point now I can select all 3 of those vectors, and I can make sure they're ungrouped, but I can weld them together. Goofball, don't do that. Is it going to not? Give me a second here. Let me see if it's going to give me a hard time. Weld. You see that? See that little glitch right there? It should weld the line, the outside perimeter, so that it's getting rid of everything in between here. So let me group these 2 together. Now let's try to weld those 3 parts. Still didn't weld. So got to go back to the other tool, which is my scissor tool. So with the scissor tool, we can come over here and just trim and bring that together. So if something doesn't work for you right off the bat, or there's some kind of glitch or some funkiness going on, right? Find an alternative. That's all you can do. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to, I don't want it up that high. I want to come down here because I want to kind of find, how, I don't know how tall I want my text to be yet. So let's just go right here. And then once again, let's mirror that, flipping it vertically to create that other side. And then I can get rid of those 2 lines. They're not necessary. All right, now on here, I do want to create my little decorative elements and all. And for time's sake, since I talk so much and everything, I'm just going to trace the image that I brought in from the internet. All right, so that JPEG image does not load properly. And probably because I downloaded it right off of Google instead of going to the freepik.com and grabbing it. But it is a JPEG, but it's not loading properly. So I'm going to use what's considered to be a snipping tool. And I'm going to resave this as a PNG. Iron swirl. Now let me bring that in. Okay. Now on this, I'm not taking all these little leaf things. I just want the swirl itself for right now. It's not the prettiest swirl. It's a little funky and all that stuff. But hey, we're not going to complain too much. Let's go ahead and open up the Trace Bitmap tool. Bring this up to 75. Default corner fit. Going to turn the noise filter up to 3. Preview. Apply and close. All right. Now, I could keep those elements and all, but I really don't want to. Not for this particular thing. So the image is grouped together. I'm going to hit U. Keyboard shortcut U for ungroup. And I'm going to ungroup those vectors. And then I'm just going to select this one. I really only need one. I don't need all the rest of this because the 2 match. And here on this, I want to redraw it to see if I can smooth out some of the lines a little bit of funkiness going on here. So we have a wonderful tool over here called the Curve Fit tool. I love the Curve Fit tool. So we're going to open that up. And I want this. This is Bezier curves. It's not an arc. It's not a straight line. It's more of a curve, a Bezier curve. And so I want to replace the vector with the curve. And I want to really try to take this out. So I'm going to use a tolerance for 10 thousandths. And let's see if that smooths it out. And it does. Well, it does well. Let's do that one more time. I can do it as many times as I'd like. All right. Now, on this end, I want to show y'all something really quickly. Let me pull this over here. If you have VCarve Pro or Aspire, you have gadgets. And one of those gadgets is the swirl gadget, where you can create your own swirls. And there's the swirl types, logarithmic, Archimedes, involute, and golden ratio, right? And so with each of these, they creates a different type of swirl. Now, I'm going to, on this swirl, I'm going to say that I want on the width, I want it to be along the x-axis, you know, let's say 5 inches just for right now. And the times around basically is kind of 1 time around. I could put the number 2, but we'll just do 1 for right now. 1 time around. And arbitrary only matters when you're doing a logarithmic or an involute style. And so I'm just going to keep the arbitrary at 2 at the default. And let's zoom, or let's see where it drops it. Let's hit apply and close, and let's see where that came in here. So 1 time around, let's get out of this tool, curve fit tool. 1 time around is not enough times around. I mean, it's close, but let's flip that. And it's not the right kind of curve, right? So let's go over gadgets, swirl. Let's look at an Archimedes on this. And I don't know why it likes throwing it up here in the corner. An Archimedes swirl, not the right swirl, right? Close, but closer, but it's a little too high. And I can change that. That's on the, that's just based on the size and everything. But let's do that one more time. And I can also change the arbitrary, but let's do an involute. And let's go 2 times around involute. I can work with that. Let's go back to our default 2. Yeah, it doesn't really change much for me. All right, logarithmic looks good. Oh, I'm going to go Archimedes. Okay, so I'm going to hit V on the keyboard. I'm going to turn that vertically. I'm going to hold down the control key. I'm going to drag a copy here. And I'm going to hit the letter H to rotate that, and the letter V to flip it up. So it's kind of going the opposite direction, the other direction. Now I'm going to offset these lines, and I'm going to be doing some trimming. I'm going to, I don't want it to wrap all the way around there, but I'm going to offset those 2 lines using the offset tool. I'm going to offset them inward. It doesn't matter at this point, inward or outward, but I'm going to go a distance of 1/8 of an inch. Let's go a little bit more. Let's go 3/16. 1875. Let's go a little more. 0.3. All right, we're going to call that. All right, now I'm going to take, and right now, these 2 items, let me group this one together, G for group. Let me group this one together, G for group. And if I select both of those, I can go in here and align them up and down with each other, make sure they're kind of in line somewhat. This will make sense in just a minute. And the reason why I want to do that, because this one here, when I come in and I align this, I would have to rotate this to bring this down to here, right? To kind of create that, difference in size and everything. You can kind of see where I'm going with that, right? Well, here, we're going to end up resizing this in a minute, but I want them to kind of be somewhat in line, so I don't have to rotate too much. But what I'm going to do is this back one here, I'm going to scale it slightly smaller, and I want to align these to where the bottoms line up with one another. And then I'm going to take kind of a straight line, and I'm going to kind of connect to the tangents, if you will. And I don't think it will let me actually use the tangent shortcut because it's not a circle, but let's find out. A tangent shortcut, if I click on one object and I come over here and I hover my mouse on the other, I should, if it allows me to use it, I should be able to hit the letter T on the keyboard and it would snap to the tangent. But because it's not a circle, it's not going to let me do that. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of find a good transition point and space bar to finish. And I'm going to use node editing. Kind of find that transition point. And then I can this one goes on this one. I want to see where it kind of somewhat transitions into that turn. It'll be a little rough there, but I want to offset that line outward 0.3, and that'll kind of give me a point to I'll kind of connect somewhere right in here. That one I'll be happy with that. But I'll take my scissors and I'll come in and, oh, I got to ungroup the objects. Ungroup. And I'll take the scissors because the weld tool is not going to work for me in this particular situation. But I'll come in. Now, when I cut with the scissors and all, you really got to get up in on it. And you got to, you know, make sure that you get rid of any overlaps and everything. So there's one, I mean, you got to really, really get in there and make sure you get rid of any overlaps that might be there. And so we'll do the same thing here, trim that, the obvious here. And let me hit undo. Yeah, that looks okay. And then this will be, we'll just kind of transition it there. Little bumpy on the transition here, but in node editing on those hard points, you can see I've got these vectors here. We're not done yet because I'm going to use the curve fit tool again to clean all those vectors up, right? But so now I have this shape here. Now I need to kind of connect the endpoints. And so I'll just use the tool here to bring the two endpoints together and close them off. Okay, so we kind of have that swirl now coming around, right? Easy peasy. Now, if I wanted it to be a little bit wider, at this point, I offset the entire thing outward, you know, 0.03, 0.02. Let's go a quarter. Let's just as an example, let's go 1/8 of an inch outward, deleting the original. We don't necessarily need sharp corners here, but, you know, offset, and I can make it wider, right? Heavier if I wanted it to be, that kind of thing. Okay. It all depends on, this has got to get, this big boy right here has got to get scaled down to, you know, be appropriately fit in here. And it really depends on how thin the lines are. If I feel that they're going to be too thin and carved too shallow, I'll offset it outward a little bit. And in this case, it might not be a full 1/8 of an inch. If I offset 1/8 of an inch outward, you know, it's going to be too much at that small size, right? I'm no longer that big piece anymore. So I may offset outward, you know, 32nd, 0.03125, and, you know, just to get a little bit of heft there. You know what I mean? Right? Whatever it takes, because when it carves, the depth of the carve is going to be based on, you know, the space between the lines. And now let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. We didn't end up using it and all, or that graphic, because we drew our own. But if you didn't have VCarve Pro or Aspire, desktop doesn't have access to the gadget library, right? And so this could be accomplished. You could freehand draw your swirls, whatever the case may be, right? Okay. All right. So now this comes around. That looks good. And I like the way that looks. Let's size it down just a little bit. kind of balance the weight out a little. All right. And very simply, I'm going to take that with the mirror tool. I've got a slight bit of overlap here. It could be as big of an overlap or little, but you do need an overlap because we're going to weld it together, right? So got our overlap here, got it positioned about where I want it. So now I'm going to use the mirror tool and we're going to flip it horizontally to the other side. We're going to flip that vertically and horizontally again, right? So it's on all 4 pieces. Cool beans. Now we're going to take and select this as a whole and we're going to weld it. And the only thing that should happen is it should eliminate that little intersection right there when we weld it. Yes. Thank you for working for me that time, right? So we just weld those together as one. We'll do the same thing with this down here. Weld. And now we have our little decorative part, right? All right. Cool beans. All right. So now let's get some text going on here. And like I said, I was going to use the Milk Store font. Let me write out the fonts. I'll write out the word eat pie, all capital letters. Let's set that here for a minute. And let me just show you. I'm actually going to set that here. And I'm going to control key that down 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And on here on the Milk Store clean number 1, that's what this is set to. So let's do this next one. We'll do Milk Store number 2 so you can see what that Milk Store font looks like. This one we'll do Milk Store number 3. And this one Milk Store number 4. As far as Milk Store number 5, let me get down to the M's because I didn't have that one stored at the top. Let's hold down the control key and bring that up one more. And Milk Store number 5. Looks like that. So here are the different fonts that's with that collection. So we have number 5 has kind of the almost like a Times New Roman look going on there. Number 4, a little bit rounded on the letters. Number 3 is basically number 5 bold, but bold, like kind of heavier in the font. Number 2, just straight square font. And then number 3 is this font here. And it doesn't look good in all capital letters. This font looks amazing when you type it out proper. And that's what we'll probably do with gather together and, give thanks, gather together. But it does not look good as a all caps on that one. So I think for what I'm going to do, for this particular one, I'm going to do number 2, font number 2 here. And so let's center that onto the board. Let's give that font some size. Now, I could come in here and I could stretch it. I could type it out. I could do what have you. I could make it as tall as I want and everything. Whatever you think, will look good and fit for you. So that looks good for me. I'm actually going to go 3.875. It does not like the point for some reason. So unless I typed it wrong, 3.875. I'm an idiot. 2.875. I was like, why is it getting bigger? Because my number was getting bigger. I wanted to go smaller. 2.875. All right, just because what that's going to do for me is when I center that, it'll give me a nice little reveal of space here and here. Okay, and as far as the width, I don't think I need to stretch it out or anything like that because I'm going to put my pie here, you know, my little graphic and stuff here is going to go there. So I might even shift eat pie to one side or something. Who knows? Let's see what we got. Let's use both graphics. And I'm going to align that up and down. And let's move it over just a little. I'm using the arrow keys now on the keyboard to bump it over. That looks good. And on the pie, where's my pie vector? Oh, that big old vector right there in front of my face. We'll size that down. Make sure that's aligned up and down, you know, something along those lines. Now, I could also say, okay, I want this to be aligned with the bottom of this, right? So that I could align to the bottom of that to kind of bring it to that same somewhat level across here. And I think I'll do that. I think I'll keep that. All right, now on this pie, I don't know. I honestly don't know how it's going to carve yet. I might not be selecting all the vectors in here. We'll know that when we create the toolpath. But that's going to be kind of our eat pie center part right there. Now let's go into our text box again. And this time we'll use this font right here. And we're going to gather together, give thanks. Let's see here. All lower, upper and lowercase gather together. We'll take a look at that. Got to remember it's going to be curved too, so you got to kind of imagine if it'll look good curved or not. Gather together, and then let me see if I want gather together to be this, because I'm going to use one more font, or if I want give thanks to be. So let me see here. Give thanks could possibly be. Oh boy. Okay. One more. All right, I'm going to ask for your input in the chat and everything. If you were making this sign, would your curved text be the script text, which will look good? I'll make it look good. Or would you have your curved text being the straight text, and your middle text, the large text here, eat pie, would you keep that as is, or would you have it in the script font? Let me see what everybody says as I'm making things happen. All right, so we're going to select this, and we're going to select that, and we're going to align it to the curve. We're going to be on the curve. I think the script text being curved that deeply, it doesn't necessarily need to have that much depth to the curve. I think that's I think, therefore I am So from what you saw or just seen, straight text on the curve versus the script text. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat. Okay. And then this one is I'm a fan of the straight text on the curve. Okay. Let's take a look at oh. What do you think about the script text in the middle versus the straight text? What do you think? What do you think? Okay. All right. So with that, we don't need those layout lines anymore. We can kind of see our sign here. Okay. Very simple, straight to the point sign, very, simplistic in nature. We don't have to try to fill up every single blank space in there. It doesn't have to be too busy. Sometimes less is more, that kind of thing. So let's take a look at this as a carving. Let's create the toolpath and just see what we end up with. We'll do it two different ways. So the first way is just going to be a simple V carve with a border cut. So we'll do a V carve toolpath, no flat depth, 60-degree V bit, no need for an end mill. This will be a simple V carve, and then we'll do a profile cut on the inside line. On the profile cut, we'll cut 3/16 0.1875 with a 60-degree V bit as well. And the cut will be on the line. So we'll calculate that. And if we preview that visible toolpath, this is a simple, straightforward V-carve. Okay. And then we'll have a profile cutout. And this could be a scalloped border to look like a pie, crust. We could do a scalloped border around the edge. I'll show you how to do that. And let's do a profile cut, cutting all the way through the material, Z equals 0.75, cutting on the outside line. I'm not going to throw tabs in here. This is for preview purposes, for this, so I can take away the waste, but we can do a simple straight cut. Cutting, let's try that straight cut with a 1/4 inch end mill and not a V bit, right? So let's calculate that. I'm going to hit undo last to clear that, undo that last cut, and then we'll preview that visible toolpath. Okay. Now, to smooth things out, I'm going to use another profile toolpath. This time it's going to cut 1/4 inch deep. It's going to cut on the outside of the line, but it's going to step over the line by 1/8 inch. And I'm going to use an 1/8 inch roundover bit. The white side 2050 1/8 inch roundover bit. And I want to round over and soften up that edge and everything on that cut. And let me make sure that I did the step over correctly. Yeah. A nice little subtle round over. And I could do that. I don't have to do that on the CNC. Hey, John Thompson, how you doing, buddy? But so there's a very simple sign. Now, you see how lightly the pie carved, right? It carved in between the lines because there's a third line in there. Don't want that. I want it to kind of emulate the pie on the left. So let's go back over, and this is important things to look out for and all. A V-carve toolpath cuts between two lines. It skips the next two, cuts the next two, skips the next two. So when we're looking at this pie here, you can see that it cut between these two lines, skipped here, cut between those two lines, skipped here, cut between those two lines, and so on and so forth, right? So what we do is I want it to kind of cut between these two lines. So I need to eliminate some of the vectors. But I need to be mindful that when I eliminate the vectors, I got to make sure that it doesn't eliminate the wrong ones. So here I'll select this one. And I can delete that one, get that out of there. And then this one, get that out of there. If I did that, then over here, when it cuts between these two, it's going to skip this, and then it's going to cut this. So if I'm going to have it cut in there, it's going to cut this, skip this, and cut that. So this will be sticking up. I prefer it to cut here. I prefer it to skip here. So in order for that to happen, I need to create another line here. I took out the line here, but I need to add one here. So we're going to offset that inward. Not that much. Let's just go 20 thousandths. Okay. And then it's going to, let's see what it's going to do. So let's come back in here on this toolpath. not that one, on this one. And let's add the pi back in, and I ungrouped the pi, so that's why it's not selected. We're going to recalculate that. We're going to reset the preview and preview the visible toolpath again. Now here, I forgot to deselect that line, but let me add some color here real quick. So on the filling, I don't want it to carve that big old area out and all. On the line, I need to actually eliminate that line that I need to eliminate the outer line. I don't want it to carve, but I don't want that little thin line right there. It doesn't need to be there. So let's go in here. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is here, it's going to just get rid of that line. And that widens up the crust. So if once again, if I come in here and recalculate that, reset the preview and preview the visible toolpath, oh, you booger. Get rid of that line. Do it again. Calculate. Okay, good. Now, as far as the pie filling, I don't know. I'm kind of like wanting the pie to have some kind of filling there, but we got some, extra lines that we can kind of eliminate. So I don't need these inside lines being removed, so I can get rid of those here. So it'll carve in there, and I could either come in here and remove this, so it'll just carve in between those lines. And if that's the case, I don't need this inside one. I don't need this inside one. That. Just the inside, these little vectors. Trash anyway. All right, let's do it one more time. Reset the preview and preview the visible toolpath. And that will be more in line with the pie over here. So let's go into full view, full 3D view. And that's more in line with the pie on the right. Okay, so we had to get rid of some of those lines. All right, so one more time. This one and this one, let's preview those visible toolpaths. Turn off the color. And there is your first little sign. Now, we're an hour and 14 minutes in. I don't want to drag this out too long and all, but that's your first sign. That's not the primer sign. I want to do a Happy Thanksgiving sign. Get a little bit creative, but it should be fairly quickly should be able to knock it out fairly quickly. But there's sign number 1. Now, I'm going to make these vectors available for these two signs. The vectors that you can import and everything. And then, you can always add or take away from them. But that's the sign. Gather together, give thanks, eat pie. Hey, it's something fun. All right, let's go ahead and hit save on that. Now let's go back to the 2D view. And let's take that vector for this sign and let's move it off to the side. Let's get rid of these fonts that are not any good. Let's get rid of this graphic and that graphic. Now let's go back to our sign board setup and go back to our 24 by 14 7/8. All right. If you liked that sign, give me a thumbs up, and we'll, you know, I'll know. Right. All right. Like the video. Okay. So for this one, it's going to say Happy Thanksgiving. We're going to use the distort tool. We're going to distort a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of an organic shape. We're going to use some pumpkins, and we're going to use a pumpkin and vine, kind of a combination of pumpkins and the pumpkin and vine and everything. So first thing I need to do is I need to get my graphic traced. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this graphic. And on this graphic, we're going to be making elements. I want just the leaves instead of the vine and things like that. But I do want the leaves and the vine in one area, but just the leaves in the other. So we're going to convert this to a black and white. Once again, turn the fading off so I can see it in its glory, right? All its colored off. And I'm going to slide this back and forth till I get, kind of the best looking version of what I want. And I actually really want this center of this to have a little bit of a depth to it, but I want the bottom kind of cut off like this and this dark shadow in here. That actually is going to play a major role in the design and stuff like that. So the 75 is going to work out for me on this one again. So I'm going to stick with my 75. I'll bring the noise filter up to a 4 to eliminate some of the noise that might occur. Preview that, apply it, and close. And on the 4, there were still some little square pixels in here, and those square pixels are trash. If the pixel doesn't have any shape to it, and it comes out as being square, that's trash, right? So if I were to have on that trace, if I hit undo and I open that trace tool back up, if I were to turn that noise filter up a little bit and everything, then I'm still catching that one, but I'm eliminating that one, right? So the noise filter is going to, kind of clean up a little bit and everything. And I'm fine with that. I can delete that after the trace is done. But that's going to be my trace there. We can always go in and turn the bitmap layer off to hide the image. In this case, I don't need the image in the design any longer. So I can just, eliminate the image itself or the layer, whatever the case may be, whatever you need to do. Now, I need this to be broken up. So I'm going to ungroup it. And on the come back here. On here, I'm going to select the pumpkin. Oh, close your tool. Always close your tool. I was wondering why it wasn't selecting the pumpkin. I want to make sure that I don't accidentally select, any other parts of this. And I'm going to G for group that pumpkin together. So now I can move it freely wherever it's going to go. On here, I'm going to end up grouping this together, but I want to make a couple of copies. Okay. And on those copies, I'm going to bring an original over here that I'll always have because I'm going to be cutting these up in different configurations, but I want the original intact. And I do have some other pumpkins that I grabbed that, might get used. So I'll ungroup those and I'll group them one by one. So G for group, or it's the group button over here. Select the pumpkin, hit G for group to group it. Select the next one, G for group on the keyboard. G. And I can use those in the design as well. Okay. We'll see how everything pans out in just a moment. Now, I'm going to move this pumpkin. This pumpkin is going to play a big role. I like that shadow in the background. It's going to play with the shadow of the rest of the design. And the same thing on these vines. But on this, I actually want just the leaves here and here. I want on one of these that I'll be able to make copies of these leaves and spread them around. So I want to go into node editing on just this one. And I want to, in node editing, I'm going to pick a spot. Really doesn't matter where. I don't have to be on a node, but I'm just going to right click and cut the vector. And I'll do the same thing over here. I'm going to leave this one with the vine just a little bit longer. Okay. And on the vine itself, all that's left, I'm still in node editing mode. All right, so now on the two leaves, get out of node editing mode here. I want to join this with a smooth curve. The tool over here, join with a smooth curve, and I just want to close it off. Okay, and so that way I have these leaves. So now this leaf, I'll G for group to group that one together, G for group to group that one together. Now I can make multiple copies of these, and I can rotate them in different orientations, and I can kind of, throw them around and stuff. All right, so now I've got some leaves here. Let me take those and let me set those off to the side. I do want just one full vine and everything that I can use, so I'll just hit G for group. Let me pull that off to the side. I like to keep my work area clean until I get everything kind of laid out. And then on this one, on the vine itself, I want just the vine without the leaves. So just the vine without the leaves. So pretty much, I'm going to kind of come up as high as I can. And I'm pretty much going to go just with this vine. I'll get the one that kind of crosses over. I might have that little stub coming out there, but let's go into node editing mode. And let's cut the vector here and here. This time I'm going to hit delete and get rid of this leaf. I can get out of node editing mode for a second. And I can join that back with a smooth curve just to kind of close it off. Same thing here. I'm going to go up kind of high on this one, just somewhere up in here, cut the vector. No particular rhyme or reason where to cut. I'll select that, and then I'll close that off with a smooth curve. So now I have just that vine. Okay. And on the vine, this little kind of decor, it's going to be a solid stem here. I might, depending on what it looks like, I might end up holding the control key down and bringing this up here and bringing a copy basically, and kind of just bringing that in, widen it up a little bit or something to kind of break up that top. If it needs it or anything, I'll leave that in there for right now. But now I can select all of this and hit G for group. No, not yet. Sorry. Hold down the control key. Bring that copy up. G for group to group that one. And on this one, I need to get rid of this shadow down here. So I go back into node editing mode. Cut the vector here. Come over here. Cut it back here. Come over to here. All the way over to here. Cutting the vector. So now I can select this shadow area and delete it. Get rid of this stuff. And then I need to select this and join with a smooth curve. We'll fix that distortion in just a minute, but I need to do it again. Join with a smooth curve, and I'll fix that distortion. So go into node editing mode, and here I'm just going to pull this curve back. And over here, same thing. So it got a little carried away. So I'm going to actually pull this line up and then pull this back. Okay. And now I'll select that one, G for group. So now I have all these elements to use with this sign in different configurations and stuff. Now let's get the main part in here, which is the text. Okay. And with the text, it's going to say Happy Thanksgiving. HAPPY. Thanksgiving. Now, on this font, I think I'm going to go with my Brilliant font. And so let's go down here to the bee's knees. And I'm not seeing the Brilliant font because that is not the name of the font. The name of the font is Royal Black River, or Royal Signage. We could try both of them. So it's not Brilliant, it's Black River. So B, Black River Bold. Okay. Now, on here, let's go 4 inches. I'm going to break this up. Text, right-click text, break it into lines so that this and this are 2 different fonts, or 2 different lines, basically. And then we're going to do some distortion. So on here, I want the Happy to be centered on the the top of Thanksgiving, but I want it to have like an S. I want them to kind of have like a little bit of an S curve and all that stuff. So let's center them both left to right, center this one left to right, get everything centered like that. And let's make sure that we're centered on the board here. Okay, so now I want to have a little bit of a curve or a little bit of a flow to Thanksgiving, and then I'm going to make Happy kind of, somewhat follow suit. Now, on Happy and everything, because of the particular font I chose, the capital H and the lowercase letters here, they're shorter than the capital H. And that's the font. So if I would have typed in all caps, then it has a little bit of a different style. And I don't like the way the A looks on this particular one when it's all caps and everything. I like the way it looks as this, HAPPY. And of course, I just typed it right in all caps again, HAPPY. But at the same time, when I distort this, or before I distort this and things, I want to bring the APPY down to, I want it to be right, kind of right in line with the bottom of the H. So, but first, let me get the curve of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is going to be the controller, if you will. I don't know how to say, but anyway, it's gonna guide everything. So with Thanksgiving, here and all. Same thing with the Thanksgiving text. The capital T is slightly taller than the rest of it. And if I do it all caps, it's not going to look good. Royal signage might look good and all, but this one won't. So I need to also, before I distort this, I need to bring and fix this. So I need to convert it to curves. It's going to take it, not that curve. Convert it to curves. That's going to take it. It's no longer a font now. So you want to make sure you got your spelling correct, got the right font that you want to use and all that stuff, because now it is no longer a font. And so in this case, now I can take and I can start to distort this a bit. And what I want to do is I want to kind of bring the text in alignment. And how I'm going to do that kind of perfectly is I'm going to select and I'm going to group this together for a minute, and I'm going to select the letter T last, this first, Thanksgiving first, the T last, and I'm going to go to the alignment tool and align to the bottom. So that way I know they're all aligned. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to, on here, I'm going to ungroup. I don't necessarily need to ungroup it. I'm going to just stretch it just a little bit. I want to still stay under the T, but I want it a little bit taller. Now, as a whole, I want to use the distort tool. So what I'm going to do is I've got this kind of how the height and everything that I want. So I'm going to hit U to ungroup. And then now that everything is selected, I'm going to hit G to group this as a whole. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to throw it inside of a bounding box. And I'm going to click apply. And whatever I do to this bounding box, that text is going to follow suit, right? Whatever I do, whatever I stretch, whatever I want. And so what I would like to do is I want to bring I do want it to have a little bit of an angle, but I also want to have a little bit of a curve too. So I'm going to take these two nodes here and I am going to kind of pull them down slightly. So the text is kind of, going at a bit of a ramp. And then it's very important that when I do the curve, if I curve this whole thing, it's going to curve the whole text. And I got to be careful how I'm distorting. So I can add points in if I need to, so that when I do create kind of a curve and all, I don't want a curve to be that dramatic at the top. I want that to be a little bit somewhat more subtle. But I'm kind of doing it from the A, not really from the A, but, a little further in. I'm kind of leaving, this untouched and just doing from here. But now where I really want this is on the, you forgot the Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. Thank you. So really quickly, that's what I love about undo, Control Z. So let me get that back to a font, which is there. And let's go back in there and let's correct that spelling. And there's a red line right there in the software. There's a red line telling me that I have it spelled wrong. And I'm glad y'all caught that. I'd have been like halfway into that one. All right, so let's go back again. So Thanksgiving, right? Good. All right, let's do that one more time. Let's convert it to a curve. Nope. Yep. Convert it to a curve. Let's bring this down. I want to align it with the bottom of the T. So if I select this group that I just made here with the T, I can use the alignment tool and bring that just to the bottom. Now I can bring this text here. I want to slightly bring that up to where it's just under the T. And then I will select the T, hit the letter U to ungroup, G to group it all together now, and then go back into that distort tool. So luckily we weren't too far into it before I saw what you guys were telling me. Once again, we're going to take these two nodes and I'm just going to bring them down little bit. I'm going to insert a point here and here. I'm going to turn this into a Bezier curve and this line down here into a Bezier curve. All right, now with that being what I want, the last thing that I want to do is I want to give the G, I want to curve this, but before I curve this, because it's going to play a role, well, let me see here. Just this is going to be just a very subtle. It's like it's not, I mean, just a very subtle roll. Nothing crazy. Okay. Let's take that and move it up. We'll get everything centered and all in just a minute. All right, now on the G, I want to add a little bit of a decorative element here. So what I'm actually going to do is let me look at, in this same font, let me look at what a J looks like. That's a capital J. Let me see what a lowercase j looks like. That's that. All right, so capital J it is. I'm going to convert that to a curve, a vector and everything. And I'm going to size it down a little bit. And I'm going to bring it over here. And I'm going to snap that in there. And the I'm going to take my scissors, trim away that. And of course, it trimmed away from the line here. Because I wasn't on the line. All right. Close enough. Now, here, Thanksgiving is grouped together, so I can't do any trimming and all while it's grouped together. So U to ungroup Thanksgiving. And it's not going to break out of the the distortion mode, the envelope. It's still inside the envelope. So in order to get it out of the envelope, I have to convert it to curves. I got to break it out of that envelope and convert it to curves. And then I can come in and now I can, trim accordingly. And what I'm doing is I'm actually connecting, and I'll fix it with the nodes here in just a minute, but I'm connecting the G together just to give it a little bit of a decorative element here. And over here, I've got a major overlap right here on the left side. And it's because the lines don't line up here and here. So I'm on the bottom of my G, or, kind of where the J was starting here. I'm going to cut the vector right there. And that line that I just cut free, I can move that away, delete it actually, but now I can just join with a straight line here to reconnect that, right? To clean that up. All right, and then on the other G, I want to do the same thing, and they should be roughly about the same size. but there's a little bit of a different curve to it. So, and I'm going to be changing this up over here. So we're going to go capital J. And I could freehand draw this, but it's just easier for me to use this font. Now on this one, this is not going to be here like this. It's going to come in and it's going to come with a thin line. It's going to come with a thin line and curve right up to, you know, here. And also on this, when I'm sizing this, when the lines cross over one another, when they're right on top of each other, it'll turn blue. So it's kind of like it's hard to see in the screen, but it will turn kind of like it blinks kind of blue. Now I'm not anywhere in line here on that one, and that's fine for right this second. And I'm going to pull that one in. At least I'm in line there. And let's bump that down just a little bit. Okay, once again, I'm going to take the scissors, clean up, you know, anything that doesn't belong. And here, once again, I am off my line. So at this point, I'm going to go into node editing. I'm just going to snap it into there because it's going to get trimmed back here anyway, but I just want somewhat to be in line. And I'm going to just snap this on the line there. Because when I trim with the scissors, I'm actually trimming this and this to connect that together and all. Now, when I pulled that node editing just now, I pulled this node down accidentally and distorted that. Now over here, I'm actually going to come in and cut this vector right where it's starting to somewhat straighten out, and deleting that. And I need a rectangle. And on this rectangle, I need it to somewhat follow the curve here. And I don't want it to be touching the letters, it's going to be down, but I want it to follow the curve. So I'm going to actually use the curve to my advantage. So I'm going to pull this here and I'm going to go into node editing and I'm going to pull this node over here. I'm going to change this to an arc of sorts. And I'm going to kind of somewhat follow that curve there. And on the bottom one, the whole thing, I'm going to change that to an arc and just kind of have it somewhat follow suit here, but it's going to get skinnier as it goes, not fatter. So this node needs to come up a little bit, and I want it to kind of just squish into this, maybe not so strong on the curve there. And then that whole thing is going to come down. It's going to come to the left a little bit. And the whole thing is going to come down. And node editing. And then I'm going to take my scissors and trim that away. Trim that away. And I don't want it square on the end here. So in node editing, I'm going to right click and turn that to an arc and pull that out. Okay, so that's going to be that. Might play with it a little bit to, clean it up, but I'm just trying to give it a little bit of a little bit of something, something. All right, now the next thing that I want to do is I got a file I want to import. Hush, hush. Of some swishes, and I want to trace those. 75, default corner fit, the noise filter, I'll just bump that up to 3. Fading off, it doesn't matter on the fading at that point. Apply, close. I'm going to get rid of that image. And there's going to be, on the Thanksgiving, there's going to be, not connected to the T or anything like that, but there's going to be a line that runs right up here. But then there's going to be a swirl I want to kind of put right under here. Almost done, guys. Hang out with me. We're an hour and 46 minutes into this, but stick with me. And on that swirl that's out here, it's going to be something subtle. The make sure there's no questions in there, no other forgot. Okay, wonderful. That swirl, I'm going to probably say this one. We're going to scale it. Make it a little thinner. It's going to move up here. I'm going to rotate it. I'm not going to have it curl back around. I'm going to kind of stop it right here. So I'm going to go into node editing, and I'm going to pick a spot. And I'd like to have everything move over a little bit more. So I'm going to cut it actually back here. And I'm going to cut the vector here and here to cut that end off. Nope, Lord have mercy. To cut that end off. And then I'm going to join this together with a smooth curve just to clean it up. But then I'm going to take this, get out of node editing mode. I'm going to use my right arrow key and on this, and I'm going to bring it right in and right up just under the A like that. Now, the trace, the image, the graphic, not as smooth as I'd like it. So I'm going to use the curve fit tool, and I'm going to Bezier curves. I'm going to just redraw that just to smooth out this. And let me see if I there we go. All right, smooth that out a little. Bring that up just about there. Now, the line that's going to come here, it's going to travel the full distance right here. And so I'm only going to use one of these, and one I'm going to try to find in my little swirl bank here, one that's fairly straight and has a curve on it. If not, I can straighten it out some. But I'm going to I'm using what I got to my advantage here. So I'm going to scale this up. All this does is gets me in a general, a general starting point. it doesn't give me exactly what I need, right? So we use elements sometimes to kind of get a starting point going, and then from there we do what we need. Now I don't want this to curl up. I want it to kind of stop right here. So I'm going to come in here, go into node editing. We're going to cut the vector right back here, and here is fine. Get rid of that, and then join with a smooth curve. Just that subtle curve there. Again, you see how it's kind of flat here. It's not really smooth. So before I, go any further with it, I'm going to go into the curve fit tool and see if we can kind of, smooth things out. And I'm good with that, but it's a little fat here for me. So in node editing, I'm just going to pull this up, right? I want to kind of just thin it up and everything. And so with that, I can now kind of get this in place. And then I'll just use a line. I'm going to kind of follow this. I don't know why I used a line. I'm going to use an arc. It's not really an arc. It's not really an arc. I'll change it to a Bezier curve in a minute. So from here, we'll snap into, I'll just pick here, pull that up. Hold down the control key, drag a copy up to here. On these two, I will join with a smooth curve at the end here. And then over here, I'll just take the scissors and kind of blend this together. And in node editing, I will fine tune the curve. So, we come in here. Now happy, let's go back to happy now. Happy's got to get converted to a curve. Again, the APPY, I want them to be aligned with the bottom of happy. Now happy is still straight across. I haven't done anything with it yet. As far as like curve or distortion and all, we'll distort it in just a second. But again, I'm going to bring this up, not a lot. And I'm going to bring it out, not a lot. I'm going to select all of this, group it together, and then throw it in the distortion tool, a bounding box. So now I can start to manipulate this. So if I pull this down here and I turn the bottom of that bounding box, let me get that turned off here. If I turn the bottom of that bounding box into a Bezier curve or an arc or, what have you, if I do it as an arc, it's going to stretch like that, but then I can kind of pull it up and I can somewhat get it to follow that curve a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I want it, and I'm going to be, it's not going to sit on the line. It's going to come up, but I want it to have a similar kind of flow. Now, on this, it's centered and everything. And I'm content with that. So that's going to be good for now. Move this up. Not that far. About like that. I want kind of the same spacing that's between here. I'd like between here, you know, roughly just eyeball it, get it kind of in there. Now, still in that distortion tool, I can still edit this envelope. Happy is kind of leaning, you know, this way. So I'm going to take these two nodes and I want to kind of pull this back slightly. So it's kind of more leaning this way. But also at the same time, I can pull this a little bit to more straighten it out. You know what I mean? So whatever I do here, it's going to do everywhere. So I want this to kind of be somewhat leaning right. And then I might even come in here and just give it a on just the top. With the bottom still kind of following through. And that's fine. Now, all this stuff is going to be filled in with vines here in a minute and leaves and pumpkins and all. So now we got the text laid out. That took a long time. So we're at 2 hours in. Hopefully you're still with me. So now we're going to come in here as a whole. We're going to group all this together. U for ungroup. First of all, I got to break happy out of its envelope. So node edit mode. Get out of that. Ugh. Not node edit mode, convert to curves. There we go. All right, now I can select all of this. G for group. I'm going to scale it down slightly, keeping it centered. I am going to kind of create a boundary, if you will, around this. And it's going to be kind of surrounded with pumpkins and vines and leaves and blah, blah, blah. So starting off, I need to kind of create my little border, if you will. So I'm going to use the ellipse tool, not the circle tool. And I'm going to kind of get a boundary going here. And it's not going to be uniform by any means. Okay, so now I roughly have a boundary that I can work with. Now I'm going to take my elements and I'm going to start kind of just placing them. And so the leaves, I'm going to just start kind of placing them in different areas. And there's going to be kind of a pumpkin. The pumpkin might cross into the letters, but then we'll trim it. I'll show you how to trim it so it goes around the letters and kind of things. And I've got other pumpkins and all. But before I trim anything, I'm going to hold down the control key and I'm going to drag out a master copy of this pumpkin. I'm going to drag out a master copy of this leaf because before I start trimming and grinding and all that stuff, I need my masters, right? And things like that. This is already a copy of that leaf, so that's fine. And I'm going to be rotating these, flipping them, rotating and all, and placing them in different areas, hitting the letter V so that it's kind of facing down. The same thing with the smaller ones and stuff. And I'm going to be placing them around. Now, these are just, they're not going to be fillers and all, but there's going to be pumpkins in here and everything. So random where they're going and things like that. So here, I got two of them on top of each other here for a second. I want to flip that one. And I want to hit the letter H to flip it kind of that way. These are going to have to get welded together, you know, so they, because they overlap. One's going to, it's not welded, sorry, that's the wrong term. One's going to have to be traced to the other. So it looks like, so it literally looks like one leaf's on top of the other. You're going to see that technique in just a second. Let's take this one. I'm going to rotate this one slightly. I want to see, some of these may have a place, some of them may not in here. I want to see. And again, where the vectors are overlapping and things, where things are overlapping and stuff, those will be, it'll give the illusion that one thing is on top of the other. So as we're going to have different size pumpkins, and, where they may fall, where they fall. This one's going to be, let's go bigger with this one. And again, the placement of these things is completely up to you. All right, let's see here. Let's take this vine and let's rotate. Again, I don't know if the vines have a place in this, but they may for what I'm wanting to do. Okay, after seeing that, I do not have a vine without the dirt on it with the leaves. So let me see here. We're almost done. I know you got to go. Mary Beth, can you let the dog out, please? Sorry, guys. I will connect that together. Okay. Now, the you guys give me just 1 second, okay? When she starts breathing heavy, I know it's time to go, or she's going to go. One of the two. All right. So let's get rid of that. This needs to move down here. Okay, let me show you how we give the illusion of one thing on top of another. So we take the item that we want on top, and in this case, I will have the larger leaf on top of the smaller leaf here. We'll ungroup that, and then we take the outside boundary and offset it outward by whatever distance you want it to be. And in this case, it's going to be a small distance. So it could be, 0.03, 0.02, but we need to create a slight little offset. It doesn't need to be very big. So for this, 20 thousandths will be fine. So 0.02. And then that offset line becomes the trim boundary. So we take the small leaf, we select it first, and then we take the large leaf and select it, the offset of the large leaf last, and we go into our trim tool and we clear inside that boundary. And it'll go ahead and redraw that leaf around that boundary. And at that point, that boundary can be deleted. It's no longer needed. And so it gives the illusion when it's carved that one item is below or underneath the other, and the part that is on top, it's hidden. Okay, so we would do that, and then we do the same thing with the pumpkin here. So with the pumpkin, I don't want the pumpkin on top of happy. I want happy on top of the pumpkin. So I'll ungroup this, and then the H will get offset outward. Again, it could be whatever, however large or however big that you want it and all. And it doesn't have to be very, very small or very large, just whatever you want. And I'll go 03 with this because the H is a little bit bigger. And so that offset becomes the boundary. So if I come over here and I select the pumpkin, I select that boundary last, and then I come into the trim tool, clearing inside the boundary. It will redraw that pumpkin around that boundary. And then at that point, you delete the boundary. You no longer need it. And now the pumpkin goes around the H. So it looks like the H is on top of those areas, right? And it's hiding those areas because they're behind it. You got a solid object on top of that. And so now at this point, this circle is not going to be part of the carving. This is just helping me kind of lay out things and everything. But I do want kind of a scruffy boundary around this. It's all going to get pocketed out. So all the stuff behind Happy Thanksgiving and the vines all is getting pocketed out and everything. And so on this boundary, I do want a bit of a scruff, happening and everything on here. I want it to look a little rough. Not kind of like, torn wood or anything like that, but I don't want it to be smooth. And so there's no magic tool over here to tell me your happy text is wider than Thanksgiving. Yes, it is. Yeah, John, that's by design. The edge, think of like a wooden panel and a hole was just kind of busted through, right? And so if I go online, right? If I Google search online, let's say I Google search hole in wall vector. Then I can find these, vectors that, might give me that rough edge that I want. And, that kind of that rough outer line and everything that I want, because I want like a wooden plank, which was my board. it's going to be kind of painted black where it's all pocketed in and everything. And then the text is going to be kind of raised up, and the leaves and the pumpkins and all that stuff are going to be kind of raised up, except for the shadow areas of them and all. And I want it to kind of like it's just blown through the board or something. And so when we have a hole in the wall, we'll have like these little blowout areas and things like that. We're not having it bust through like, you know, the Kool-Aid man through a brick wall kind of thing. We just need that kind of that tear, if you will. And so if I said hole in wood panel wall vector, it might give me a little bit more of the edge that I need, the vector that I need for this and everything. It might be more fitting than a brick wall or whatever the case may be, depending on what it is. And I'm not drawing the slats and all. I just want that rough kind of, you know, texture, because my board is my board, my panel is my panel, and I want just a general shape that that I can node edit or clean up or do whatever, but it gets me kind of going. It gets me, you know, close to what, you know, what's what. So this rough edge right here would be ideal. So I could come in here and save this image. There's me muscling, flexing my muscles. Hole in wall. Yeah, that one's going to be good. So then I can come in and import that. I think. Oh, there it is. I was looking for the dialog box to pop up. I can go ahead and grab that image and drag it over here, right? Now, when I trace this, we're going to convert it to a black and white. Turn the fading off. I'm going to slide this forward, and what I'm doing is, I don't care if there's any debris or stuff up here, that'll get deleted. I want, you know, a little bit of a rough texture. If I go too smooth, then, you know, it's going to really kind of smooth things out, and then I'll lose it. So I want some of the fray a little bit. So we'll turn up the noise filter, preview, apply, close. We'll get rid of this. Now on here, ungroup this. I do not need the rectangle, and then I don't need all this trash. And it's you got to really go through this. I don't need any of the trash or anything that's outside of the vector. Okay. So everything that's outside of the vector that's not anything that's outside of the vector that's not part of the vector, we get rid of. I just want the vector itself. Okay, just that one single vector, nothing else. Now I can come over here and I can scale this up. I'll reshape, you know, I don't need that little thing flaring out there, but I'll center it. And let me find my middle square. There it is. All right, now in node editing, I do not need this little stem coming out here. I need it just to kind of wrap around here, just in this area. I don't want it to come out there or anything. It's not necessary for the design that I'm doing. So I'm going to come here and cut the vector here and here. And then I'm going to eliminate that little stem coming out there. And I'm going to join that back with a smooth curve. And it doesn't need to be so there. Over here, same thing. I don't need this shooting out here, so I'll just pick a spot. Let's go right here, cut the vector, cut the vector, delete to get rid of that. Join this with a smooth curve. And I am, let's do this one too. Delete, join with a smooth curve. All right, so now I have a boundary to kind of deal with, to kind of work with and everything. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm not going to use the curve fit tool. I could, if I want to use the curve fit tool to kind of clean things up a little bit. You know, I could clean up the nodes a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy with it and that kind of stuff. It is going to be fine. Now, right here, this craziness will be, that'll be all right. All right, let's get rid of the old ellipse that I drew. And on here, let's get rid of that. Ungroup. Hold down the control key. Actually, this side would be an ideal spot for one of this. So the great thing about these vectors, we can mirror them, we can reverse them, we can do whatever. So hold down the control key. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to hit H to flip it. And I don't need the shadow part on it. So let's go into node editing. Cut the vector here. Cut it here. Now that vector was pointing down this way. I cut it back here where it was still somewhat straight. Over here, cut the vector there, and then out here. Your outside line is what we're dealing with. And then that will let us get rid of, you know, this shadow area here and all this miscellaneous stuff. Once we get rid of that miscellaneous stuff, then we can join. Let's get out of node editing mode. We can join, select these two lines here and join with a smooth curve. Again, it'll throw it off there and do it again, join with a smooth curve. But in node editing, those two anchors, we can pull them back. It doesn't need to be so popped out there. You know, this anchor can get pulled back. All right, so now that I have that, I can group it back together just so I can move it around. Scale it down. Now I'm going to do this a couple of times with this one. And so I'm going to hold down the control key. That was not the control key. I'm going to hold down the control key. And again, where things connect and stuff, the all this stuff is going to have to get welded to this pocket and everything here. And when the pocket gets cut, the vine needs to still be there, right? You know, I don't want to cut out the pocket and the vine get cut away. So this this item here is really going to be the boundary, if you will. And so I need to figure out if on my vine here, what's going to be on top, what's on the bottom, and that kind of thing. So the first thing I'm going to deal with is these leaves here. I'm going to offset. Let's ungroup this one. I'm going to offset this line outward, and it's going to be my trim boundary for this
border as well too. Offset outward, we'll go 0.03. I'll select this vine first, hold down the shift key, select this last, and it will be the trim tool clearing inside the boundary. Let that redraw that, and it'll trim that. Now, I don't need this vector anymore, but I do need it because I need it for this. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to select my border that's going around, and I'm going to clear inside that boundary. So it's going to redraw that border. If I select the vectors correctly, the border has got to be selected first and that boundary last. I'm going to clear that, and what's going to happen is it's going to redraw when I delete this boundary now. You can see it redrew the vector here and here, so that pocket's going to get cut out, and it's going to give the illusion that the vine is kind of hovering over the pocket. And so wherever, this is coming across here, once again, this is the border and everything, and this is the vine. So on this vine and everything, the vine is crossing over these leaves. So the leaves stems right here, they're underneath that vine. So that's crossing over. And I'm not doing a weave where it's crossing over and under and all that stuff. It's just crossing over and everything. But my border right here is coming through, and it's kind of cutting right over this vector here. So this vector needs to be offset, and this one needs to be offset outward. Just make sure you have select anew there. Offset outward, so it selects that. And then my border gets selected first. That gets selected last. I clear inside that boundary, so it'll redraw that. And then I delete that boundary. I don't need it anymore. So now my border, and everything. And so I would continue that wherever my border is crossing over. If I want that to cross over the vine and the vine to be cut off, then I do that. But in this case, I want the vine kind of growing around that edge. So the border is kind of getting cut away from the vine. Now in this situation here, this little part right there, I don't need that there. So I'm going to delete this, that, and that. And my border here is crossing over. It's getting pocketed out. And once again, the vine right here, right? So if I pocket it out, that vine's gone. So I select this and this, the parts of the vine, and this, and I offset those outward. And that new boundary that got created is my trim boundary. So now I select my border, this last, and trim tool, clear inside. It redraws them around that vector so that when I delete that vector, now, the vine is still crossing through. You'll see, it'll make sense when it all goes well. So same thing here. So on these vectors and this one, they get offset outward. And I might not be able to finish this sign up. I don't know. We'll carve it here in just a second. But it gets offset outward. And that boundary, my border here, I select that boundary first, or the border first, the boundary last. That's what I'm trimming to. I clear inside that boundary. And then I delete that boundary. So that way that border is not, my vine is not getting cut into that boundary. Now the pumpkin's going to be on top of the boundary. So I gotta create the offset line. That offset line has to be created. Now in this case, I don't want to go, too crazy, but an offset it outward. I only select that border first, that outside line. Now let me stop. I jumped too far. When I offset this pumpkin outward, it's going to create all these vectors inside here that I do not want. So the first thing I do is I turn off the outside line that got created, and I hit delete to get rid of all those inside vectors that I didn't want. Now I come in here and select my border that's going around the whole thing. I select the pumpkin last, or the offset of the pumpkin last, and I clear inside that boundary. And then I delete that boundary, that outside border of the pumpkin. Now I don't need that little piece of trash there. I can get rid of that. So now my border goes around, so it looks like the pumpkin's on top of it. And I would continue this so on all the way around. We are at 2 hours and 26 minutes. I hope you guys are doing all right with me and everything. Stick with me a little bit. We got to do the G. Let's do the G since we're right here. Offset outward. That's already selected. I'll select the pumpkin and the boundary. And we're going to clear inside that G. Trim inside that boundary. Okay. Now, with that trimmed, the offset that, let me hit undo because I had the wrong vector selected. Pumpkin gets selected first, and the borderline, all that gets selected first. The J boundary gets selected last because it's the boundary, the last item. Clear that. And then that J boundary. Now, my border, that border drew itself all the way around the G here to continue on to this line here. What we're going to do with that is we're going to delete that offset, and that border is kind of crossing around and everything. We'll see what that looks like, how that looks and everything when it carves. But if not, then this is going to just wrap right to the side of the G, and then it's going to connect here. But we'll see what that looks like. It might be a decorative little element. Let's get rid of that piece of trash. We'll see. I know it's there. And then here, I want the little leaf this time to be on top of the big leaf. So I'm going to take the little leaf. I'm going to offset that boundary outward. Hold down the shift key. Hit delete to get rid of all the crap that got created in there. Select the big leaf here first, that boundary last, and clear inside boundary. Now, one of these days, I'll look at the tool and see if there's a keyboard shortcut that I can hit so I don't have to keep going back to this tool. I can just hit it. We'll see. And then we'll just get rid of that boundary. So that gives the illusion that the leaf is under here. Now, but this leaf and this boundary, my border, it's got to be over the border. So it needs to be offset now. Oh, don't do that. Don't click off after you do your offset. When you have your vector selected and everything, to do your offset, don't click off of it, because when you create that offset, you want to be able to hold down your shift key and turn off that outside line that you're going to use for the trim boundary, and then be able to hit the delete key to get rid of all that other crap that got created in there, right? And because when I select this border and I select this boundary and I trim, clearing inside that boundary, I then delete that boundary. It's no longer it served its purpose. It's no longer needed and everything. So we just work our way around. Now, that border line, again, that border is kind of happening. It's going around the leaf. I really don't want it to go around the leaf in that fashion. That's not, I don't know. I don't think that would actually look good. We'll see. I actually kind of want it to come right through here, and just reconnect with itself. but it didn't draw it in that fashion and all. It drew it around the other way. So I take the big leaf again and I offset it outward one more time. Hold down the shift key, turn that off and hit delete on all those other offsets that got created. And now on this, I'm going to use the scissors or node editing or what have you. But here, I'm going to trim this area here to connect that line. Come all the way over here. I'm going to trim this to connect that line. And then these other boundary going all the way around, I'm going to hit delete. So that way the boundary is just crossing over here instead of going around that leaf. And that's going to be kind of the same similar way as with around that G. We'll see what that looks like. And if not, we'll clean it up. So get rid of that little bit. And this all is going to stay here. So the border has to get drawn around it, or it's got to go over it, it's got to go under it, it's got to go whatever, something. And so here, if I offset this, it's going to do the same thing. If I offset this outward, there's a good possibility that it could have that borderline draw around, and I would just have to figure it out what I need to do and make whatever trim necessary. But I do need to offset this outward. I do need to hold down the shift key and turn that outside border that I just created off so I can hit delete to get rid of all this other stuff that was created. Now I can select this leaf here, and I can select this boundary here, and I could go into my trim tool and I could trim, clearing out that boundary so that this leaf is behind this one now. My G, I want this leaf to actually be over the G this time, when it comes around here and everything. So I'm going to keep that same boundary, but I have to select the G first and this. Select the boundary last and clear. And then when it clears, let me undo that. These two things need to be grouped together. Select that boundary last, clear. Stand by a second. All right, we're going to do them at two separate times. So ungroup this, turn this one off, select this G first, and then this line, clear. Don't you give me a hard time now. G first. G first. This last, clear. Oh, it's going to give me a pain in the butt time. All right. So it doesn't want to trim on that boundary. So I'm going to delete that boundary, and I'm going to, I'll have Thanksgiving. I'm going to have the G go over the leaf. So I'll offset the G outward. I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I could have done it the other way, but I'd have to redraw something, but I don't know what it is yet. But I'll have the G go outward. I'll select the leaf here. Select the G boundary last and clear, trim, clearing inside that boundary. And then I'll get rid of that G boundary. Okay, so the G is on top of the leaf. That looks better anyway. All right, so anyway, we would repeat this all the way around. Now, what I'm going to do, minus the the stuff on the left-hand side. Let's create a toolpath so we can see what this is looking like so far. And also to let me check out my G. I think I need to do the same thing with the G here. I need to, on this one, that border, they got drawn around here, right? That border that got drawn around here. I need to take this G and offset it outward really quickly. I need to select that border. Where is it at? Right there. Hold down the shift key and select that G last. And trim. I don't think that actually did anything. I think that border still goes around. It does. It does. I might have to lose the pumpkin vine going up here and just bring this right straight across. We'll see in just a second. No, actually, we won't see in just a second. We'll do it right now. Node editing, we're going to cut the vector right here. And then here, I'm going to delete all of this coming up here. I'm going to reconnect the pumpkin right there, a little smooth curve. Let me see what I got going on here. It looked like it was crossing over, but it was an optical delusion. All right, so now on this border, I'm going to cut the vector here. Node editing. I'm going to cut the vector here. And here. I'm going to get rid of that all the way around that border, that G. And then I need to connect that. I'm going to join it with a smooth curve. Then I'm going to offset the G outward. Not 0.03. I'm going to go just 0.01 this time. I'm going to select this border. I'm going to select that offset. I'm going to clear inside the boundary, and it should redraw it. You better redraw it the right way. If not, I'll just use the scissors. But trim, clear, and it redrew it around the G again. So that's not going to work for me. So all I'm going to do is I have to use my scissors and manually do it. So that's going to go away all the way around to there. This is going to go away. This is going to connect here. And that's going to connect there. And on this boundary, I do not need this big swoop coming up here. So I'm simply going to cut the vector here. And I'm actually going to cut it back here. Delete that. And then join that with a smooth curve. And it should just be a small wrap around there. Okay. All right. Let's take a second and run a V-carve on this. And on the V-carve, I'm going to turn off the things that are overlapping that I'm going to get warnings on that I haven't redrawn yet. You know what I mean? So I'm going to turn off the things. I'm just going to keep this boundary going here. The boundary, the pumpkin, let me just do this really quickly. The pumpkin we'll turn that off for just a second. So let me select this. Let's turn off for the time being this one because I haven't trimmed it yet. The pumpkin, this. I haven't trimmed this yet. I haven't trimmed that yet. I haven't trimmed that pumpkin yet. Just turning off this stuff in here. The vine, I haven't trimmed down there yet, so we'll leave that off for a moment. All right, everything else has been trimmed to the border. So let me just do a V-carve toolpath. 0 start depth, 1/8 inch flat depth. I like an 1/8 inch flat depth for myself. It looks good. I'm going to use a combination of a 1/4 inch end mill and an 1/8 inch end mill for the clearance tools. So we'll use a 1/4 and we'll use an 1/8 for the clearance tools. 60-degree V-bit for the V-bit. This is going to be my sample. Happy Thanksgiving with an S. And hit calculate. We're going to preview the visible toolpath. We'll give it some color and everything. And so when it gets all said and done with all the little pumpkins and all the leaves, and I'll have some other fillers and everything in there, we're going to have this Happy Thanksgiving sign. Okay. And to give some shout out and inspiration from the inspiration this, and if you wanted to buy this design that's actually finished for $1.39 or $1.49 or $1 whatever, there's a sign on Etsy where I got the inspiration for this sign from. It's $4.53, but it's a store called Printable Art by MJ, and $4.50. It's currently on sale, but that is, it's already an SVG. You could buy that SVG vector, and you could carve that sign. But what we're doing is we're taking the different elements, or we're taking similar elements, and we're trying to, emulate that. Maybe not exactly, I've got different swirls and all going on there. This needs to be reversed. It's a negative and it should be a positive. It should look like this pumpkin down here and everything. But the font is different, but that's what we're shooting for. So my job is not to teach you how to just go out and buy a design and carve one. My job is to teach you how to make one, right? Using different elements, how to trim and node edit and clear boundaries and offset and all that wonderful jazz. But, I really liked that sign. I like the Happy Thanksgiving sign, and
it's very simple to kind of create. If the word simple, I use that loosely. With the right elements, you know, you go online, pumpkin vector. So you grab yourself some pumpkins. Pumpkin vine vector. You find the pumpkin vine and everything. You pull those elements in. Then you take those elements and you trim and you make what you need from it. So you take and make the, you know, the extra leaves that you need and everything from that, you know, that trace of that vine. You make an extra vine without the leaves, whatever. You create your elements. You find your swirls and you use what you can of your swirls and things. And you start putting it together. You use your distort tool, your offset tool, your layouts, you know, distort, offset, trim boundaries, you know, and you just kind of lay things out. And this has to have an extra line around it. It's a negative. It needs to be a positive. So both these two leaves have to be reversed. So just to show that really quickly is on this one here, we have to, one, it hasn't been trimmed. So the reason why, if you notice, if we look at the 3D view, when it carved that vector that went out here and all, because that vector crossed over this line and it wasn't trimmed yet, it didn't carve that vector. So it made it a negative. And so it ignored, you know, to an extent that, you know, that vector. But what we need to do is in node editing, I'm going to kind of pull these out and I'll smooth them up in a minute when I we'll do that just for a second. But with this vector here, with it being inside that, when it carves here, this needs another line. So let me get out of node editing mode. This needs another line. So you offset it outward, and it's going to be, let's go a small amount. Let's go 20 thousandths. And the same thing with this leaf. Hold down your shift key, turn that off, and then hit delete on all that inside stuff. But now we have those extra lines around there. And if I were to carve that again, and if we include those extra lines, this one and that one, it would be smart of me to put an extra line inside this big thing right here, but that's okay for right now. But if I calculate this, then, and I reset the preview and preview the visible toolpath and all, now that pumpkin will be a positive instead of a negative. And it'll carve the way, you know, it's supposed to look and all there, you know. And so, and again, like I said, if I would create the offset in there, it would carve that properly in there, like I just said, if I took the time and made that one. Heck, I don't even need this swirl in here, and I don't need this to come, you know, this far. In this pumpkin and all could actually cross over and be sitting outside of the border like this one here and all. But the H still needs to get trimmed and cleaned up and all that stuff. But that's what we're going for, right? So it's you know, we're at 2 hours and 49 minutes. I don't want to go. I'm the long videos. I'm kind of over the long videos, right? And I'm sure you all are too. But you see the way we're heading here. Now I'm going to finish creating this, and I'll make the file available to you. But in the meantime, it'll be a vector file that you can just import and all. But in the meantime, the inspiration of this project, again, is available on Etsy. Give printable art by MJ some love, and, you know, let them make them about $4.53. But it's 20% off, and it's a good looking sign. I mean, the vector, now I'm assuming there's 4 different things here. So I'm assuming in this particular project,
there are 4 files, 4 variations, right? For $4, that's $1 a pop. There's your 4 variations. They got little banners and all that. I wasn't going to get that fancy. I kind of like just this one here, similar like it. And I have, fonts that I can use and stuff. But it's a digital download. Buy 10 or more, you get 50% off from OMJ. Printable art by MJ. But there's 4 different Thanksgiving variations of that for $4, $1 a piece that you could carve. You could sell those signs for Thanksgiving coming up, and you make a heck of a profit. I'm teaching you how to kind of go about using different elements to make things like that on your own, right? Right. So I don't know what this is going to look like. I might, when I finish it, I'll know what it looks like. But there's other elements I may add to it. There could be a cornucopia of fruits and vegetables thrown in there. Who knows? But it's that same kind of element. And sorry, this is the main one. It didn't get finished and all, but there was a lot more trimming and offsets and all that are required to it. So once again, on our vision board, we've got the Eat More Pie. We'll turn that one off for right now and that one off. But, Eat More Pie, gather together, give thanks, eat more pie, cute little sign. It's not the right size board in this now, but, and then that vector will be available to you here shortly. But once I get this design done, I'll finish it up tonight, and then I'll make that vector available depending on what I change and move around and all that stuff. But give art by MJ. And all I did was type in, well, hell, here, hold on a second. Since I'm showing her work, I might as well link it to it in the chat. So select that, hit copy, and in the chat, there's a paste to the link. And that's the one. So tell her that Lainey sent you. Okay. She don't know me. I have no affiliation with this person. I just liked the design, saw it on Google, and thought I would teach you how to make something like it. How to be creative, how to distort your text, how to add elements and trim and offset and all that fun stuff. All right, everybody. Listen, it's we're 3 hours in. It's been a long night. Let's finish it up. I'll finish it up, but let's call it a good night. I'll have these files. I'll put out a post to everywhere, letting you know the files are ready for download. You get the idea. It's just a bunch of trimming now. Trim, offset, trim, clear inside the boundary, over and over and over again until everything plays nice with each other. You saw half of it is the same steps of what we did for the last 45 minutes now. So you get the gist. And if not, call me. I'll work with you one-on-one. All right, everyone. Y'all have a wonderful night. Happy holidays. Be safe tomorrow if you're going out trick-or-treating with the kids or anything like that. And we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.